The National News Desk, locally covered, nationally connected.
Well, we're going in. I didn't say when. We're going in.
The National Guard is headed to Chicago, but does the president have the power to clean up the streets? Why a new court ruling could keep President Trump's plans for security on the outside looking in. Selling his map, Governor Newsom is spending big to rewrite the California congressional landscape, the cost of the campaign, and why the Golden State's gerrymandering is different than the Lone Star State. Plus, 80 years ago today, a war was won. We'll hear from one of the veterans who sacrificed to give us the freedom we cherish. This is the National News Desk, America's News Now. I'm Taylor Murray. Up to 600 military lawyers may soon be on their way to the Justice Department to help with the massive backlog of roughly 3.5 million immigration cases. According to the AP, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth has approved the move, and the military will soon begin sending groups of up to 150 attorneys to serve as temporary immigration judges. This as a federal judge is trying to pump the brakes on the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. Today, in a scathing ruling, a California U.S. district judge says President Trump's deployment of National Guard troops to Los Angeles this summer in the middle of those anti-ICE protests was illegal. So the big question is, what does this mean, if anything, for the president's ambitions in Chicago? And the president just confirmed his plans for Chicago today, saying sending the National Guard to the city is a matter of when, not if. The National News Desk, Kayla Gaskins, has that story from Washington.
In the Oval Office Tuesday, President Trump confirming he's made up his mind about sending National Guard troops to clean up crime in Chicago.
We're going in. I didn't say when. We're going in. This isn't a political thing.
Trump says he's sending troops even without a request from Illinois' governor.
We're going to do it anyway. We have the right to do it because I have an obligation to protect this country.
Trump calling Chicago the murder capital of the world. This comes after a bloody Labor Day weekend in Chicago. More than 50 people were shot and at least 8 killed. President Trump blasting the city on Truth Social, calling Chicago the worst and most dangerous city in the world. Illinois' Governor J.B. Pritzker pushing back, warning the White House they'll sue if the National Guard shows up in Chicago.
Because that is illegal. It's an invasion with U.S. troops.
Pritzker insisting they don't need the help.
You are neither wanted here nor needed here.
Even questioning Trump's mental fitness for suggesting otherwise.
Your remarks about this effort over the last several weeks have betrayed a continuing slip in your mental faculties.
But as Pritzker and other Democrats tout public safety improvements,
we are making progress here in Illinois and in the city of Chicago.
The numbers tell a more complex story. Yes, crime is trending down, but that's largely a correction from the pandemic peak. The city is only now returning to pre-COVID crime levels, which were already high. In 2019, the city had 498 murders. And last year, despite the drops, Chicago still had 573 homicides and the highest murder rate of any U.S. city with more than 1 million residents. As of Sunday, there have been 278 homicides this year so far.
And according to a poll by the University of Chicago's NORC, 2/3 of Chicago residents say there's an area within a mile of their home where they are afraid to walk alone at night.
Meanwhile, Kayla, earlier today, as we mentioned at the top of the hour, a judge actually handed the administration a legal blow in the case regarding the deployment of those federal troops to Los Angeles. So what more can you tell us about that decision?
Yeah, earlier today, Taylor, a federal judge in California said President Trump acted illegally when he ordered thousands of National Guard troops and, yes, even U.S. Marines into Los Angeles back in June. The judge ruled the deployment violated this 19th century law that bars the use of military for civilian law enforcement. The White House defended the move, saying the troops were needed to protect federal property during the ICE protests, but California leaders argued the demonstrations were largely peaceful and that Trump was overstepping his authority. California Governor Gavin Newsom celebrated the judge's decision. The judge gave the administration until September 12th to comply, allowing some National Guard members to remain, but strictly limiting their role. Taylor.
From Washington, D.C., Kayla Gaskins, thank you.
We just, over the last few minutes, literally shot out a boat, a drug-carrying boat, a lot of drugs in that boat.
The president breaking some big news today during a news conference shortly after Secretary of State Marco Rubio immediately confirmed on X, posting this, quote, "The U.S. military conducted a lethal strike in the southern Caribbean against a drug vessel which had departed from Venezuela and was being operated by a designated narco-terrorist organization." Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro yesterday called Secretary Rubio a warlord and said that any U.S. military action off the Venezuelan coast will end in an armed fight. Last week, 7 U.S. warships entered the region surrounding Venezuela to combat Latin American drug cartels. Venezuela denies drug trafficking accusations. Meanwhile, parents of children who crossed into the U.S. alone are now required to show up for in-person interviews with federal agents instead of just submitting identity documents online. That's according to the Associated Press. The Trump administration says it's to ensure sponsors are vetted, but advocacy groups say it's led to the arrest of some of these parents while their children remain in custody. Right now, a possible show of unity against the United States from the leaders of North Korea, Russia, and China. Kim Jong-un and Vladimir Putin are in Beijing with Xi Jinping for a military parade commemorating the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II. It's the first time the three leaders have gotten together. Bilateral and even trilateral meetings are possible. We will be watching closely to see what develops. Today is the first day of school in Minnesota. Of course, it comes a week after that deadly shooting at the Church of the Annunciation in Minneapolis. Governor Tim Walz is welcoming children back to class in Eagan, Minnesota, and says he wants a special legislative session to focus on gun control measures and maybe even an assault-style weapon ban. Now, state residents have been in favor of gun control measures in the past. A 2022 poll that was conducted after the Uvalde mass shooting in Texas showed 53% of respondents believed state gun laws should be more strict. And it will be difficult, though, to pass gun control laws as the Minnesota House is almost evenly divided with 67 Republicans, 66 Democrats, and one open seat after the Democratic Speaker of the House was murdered over the summer on June 14th. A third criminal referral has been sent to the Department of Justice against Federal Reserve Governor Lisa Cook by Federal Housing Finance Agency head Bill Pulte. In an interview on Fox, Pulte alleged Cook committed blatant mortgage fraud. Pulte's criminal referral filing comes as President Donald Trump is attempting to oust Cook. Now, Cook has not been charged with anything and is currently suing the Trump administration, arguing her firing is unjustified. Listen to this. A Texas man is now charged with the murder and a shooting death of a boy who was just playing ding-dong ditch with his friends. This is according to police. Leon Gonzalo Jr. was arrested this morning. Police say 11-year-old Julian Guzman died at the hospital Sunday. Witnesses told detectives Guzman was shot on Saturday night after banging on the door of a house in Houston and then running away. California Governor Gavin Newsom is beginning to push to redraw the state's congressional maps. An ad blitz starting today, costing up to $100 million, aims to convince voters to change the state constitution in November, allowing the new maps signed by Governor Newsom to become active. Now, last month, Democratic lawmakers redrew California's congressional districts to possibly give Democrats 5 new seats. This to counter Texas's new maps, also enacted last month, that could give Republicans 5 seats in the tightly contested U.S. House of Representatives. The major difference, though, to note between the states, California's state constitution currently requires an independent council to oversee redistricting, while Texas fully gives that power to their legislative body. The man accused of trying to assassinate President Donald Trump in Florida is in court today for a pretrial conference. Ryan Routh is representing himself as final preparations are made for the upcoming trial. The National News Desk, Jack Wu, is in Fort Pierce today, breaking down today's hearing.
This pretrial conference was Routh's last chance to settle any issues before his trial starts next Monday. This highly anticipated case comes with even more caveats, as there was some contention over new letters, new evidence, and even Routh's clothes. Ryan Routh walked into the courtroom Tuesday in a jumpsuit and handcuffs for the final time before his trial for the attempted assassination of then presidential candidate Donald Trump. The case has been anything but normal, as Routh elected to represent himself against the recommendation of Judge Eileen Cannon. After an overview of the last hearing, one of these issues prosecutors addressed was clothing. Justice Department prosecutor John Shipley says his team uncovered communication between Routh and Routh's daughter about slogans on the clothes Routh will be wearing during proceedings. This was strictly barred by Judge Cannon in an earlier hearing. Routh simply responded, "That's incorrect. After you stated that we would not do that, I did not promote the situation." He didn't deny the slogan's existence, and Judge Cannon instructed that his clothes followed the previous instructions. In the second half of today's hearing, the prosecution argued that Routh's preliminary witness list now included over 10 new witnesses that weren't previously approved. These people included professors at Harvard, the president, and pro-Palestinian protesters. Judge Cannon quickly denied the addition of these witnesses, but not before an exchange where her and Routh were talking over each other, as he attempted to justify these witnesses, saying they would speak well to his character. Routh filed a motion to suppress the prosecution's latest evidence, which was denied. He filed another motion to introduce additional letters written by himself into evidence. That motion was also denied since they are considered hearsay. Through the course of this hearing, Routh rarely used any legal reasoning and deferred to more conversational discussion with the judge. The trial should last about 3 to 4 weeks, a deadline the prosecution says should be easily met. However, multiple rulings during this hearing were pushed for next week, potentially slowing down the jury selection process. Opening statements are set to take place September 11th. Reporting in Fort Pierce, I'm Jack Wu.
Did you have dreams of your future? Graduating from high school, going to a prom, going to dances, dating your first girl, driving your first car, drinking a Coca-Cola. We had those dreams, but they were never fulfilled because we were called.
Very powerful words there. That was a World War II veteran who enlisted in the U.S. Maritime Service when he was just 16. He spoke at a ceremony today on Victory Over Japan Day, or VJ Day, marking 80 years since the war ended. Roughly 16 million Americans served in uniform during World War II. Coming up, the big change for Space Command that the Defense Secretary says will greatly improve the military's capabilities. Plus, the moment a man rescued a child from the monorail tracks at Hershey Park and the changes park goers are now calling for. Then the years-long debate over COVID vaccines is heating up as President Trump adds fuel to the fire, what he's demanding from drug companies.
The U.S. Space Command headquarters will move to the beautiful locale of a place called Huntsville, Alabama, forever to be known from this point forward as Rocket City.
Space Command on the move. President Donald Trump fulfilling a promise 7 years in the making. Space Command was created by President Trump and was temporarily placed in Colorado back in 2019. Trump decided it would eventually move to Alabama, but that decision was overturned by the Biden administration in 2023, making Colorado Springs the permanent home until now. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says the move will enhance the capabilities of the U.S. Armed Forces.
We are way ahead in space, but this will ensure we stay leaps and bounds ahead because that's the most important domain. Whoever controls the skies will control the future of warfare.
Taking a look now at the ocean because Hurricane Kiko continues to churn in the Pacific Ocean, now a Cat 1 storm as it moves slowly towards the Hawaiian Islands. The National Hurricane Center predicts it will strengthen into a major storm by tomorrow. Most models actually position Kiko to head towards the Big Island, with its wind and storm surge reaching Hawaii by the weekend. Most likely the eye of the storm will miss land, but there is a chance it could make landfall. That would happen early next week. If it does, we'll continue to follow this closely. Meanwhile, over in the Atlantic, Disturbance 1 remains for now a disorganized group of showers, but forecasters believe there is more than a 70% chance it will develop into at least a tropical storm within the next 7 days. It's still too early to predict where that storm is headed, but it is approaching the Caribbean islands at about 17 miles per hour. Congressional members are back in Washington, D.C. after a long August recess with a packed September schedule waiting for them. Not only will they have to navigate a series of budget issues and spending battles, but also multiple investigations. The National News Desk, Jeff Harris, breaks it all down.
Lawmakers will hit the ground running with the recess now over, not only trying to prevent a potential government shutdown by passing appropriations bills, but also continuing investigations into Jeffrey Epstein, Joe Biden, among others.
Earlier this summer, Congress passed the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, a budget resolution creating the framework needed to advance much of President Trump's policies in the years ahead.
What we've done is put everything into one bill. It's never happened before. It's the biggest bill of its type in history.
But a budget resolution isn't what's needed to provide funding to government agencies. Those are the 12 appropriations bills, which Congress needs to pass by September 30th to avoid a shutdown. As of July 25th, the House has approved 9 of the 12 bills, passing 2 on the floor, including defense and military construction. But aside from the appropriations bills, Congress needs to address the Farm Bill, which is set to expire at the end of the month. Also, President Trump's crime bill, which is expected to build on his crackdown in D.C.
We're going to handle D.C. first because that's directly within our purview, and then look to other cities around America as well.
Several high-profile investigations are also heating up, including the Russia collusion hoax, plus the House Oversight Committee's probe into Jeffrey Epstein and releasing the Epstein files.
We will have the petition live on September 2nd. We have all 212 Democrats committed to signing it.
In addition to those investigations, the committee also taking a deeper dive into the potential cover-up of former President Biden's mental decline while he was in office.
We're trying to get to the bottom of who was operating the Autopen, and we've brought in a dozen people so far, and they're all pointing the fingers at other people.
Now, top lawmakers on the Senate Health, Education, and Pensions Committee are also calling for oversight into recent departures at the CDC. HHS Secretary RFK Jr. is even scheduled to testify on Thursday. I'm Jeff Harris reporting from Washington.
Americans are losing faith in the U.S. economy's ability to improve their standards of living. That's according to a new Wall Street Journal poll, which shows 25% feel they have a good chance of moving up the economic ladder. That's a record low in surveys dating back to the 1980s. Now, nearly 70% say the American dream of working hard is getting ahead is no longer true. The maker of Heinz ketchup and Kraft mac and cheese will once again become 2 separate companies, a decade after a mega merger. Kraft Heinz says one company will focus on grocery staples, the other will sell sauces, spreads, and seasonings. Kraft Heinz says the goal is to maximize capabilities and reduce complexity. The names of the companies have not been announced. Google must change its search engine to curb its power as an illegal monopoly. That's what a judge ruled today, ordering the tech giant to share some of its data with competitors. But Google does not have to break itself up or sell its Chrome web browser, which is what the DOJ wanted. Google can also continue cutting deals to make its search engine the default on various devices. We have reporters all across the country in your neighborhoods covering issues that matter to you. We are taking the pulse of America, and we start in Texas, where a new school choice program is now in effect.
School vouchers are now law in Texas, meaning parents will be able to use public tax dollars to help pay for their child's private school tuition or other education expenses.
With ESA, it's going to empower families like me, regardless of income, where you're from, your zip code you live in, to choose educational opportunities that fits best for their children.
Republicans say vouchers allow parents to decide what's best for their child. Democrats say they undermine public schools.
Taking the funds and allocating them for private school might be hurting the public system.
Senate Bill 2 sets aside up to $1 billion over the next 2 years for school vouchers, with families getting about $10,000 a year to help cover tuition at an accredited private school.
Oh my God. This heart-pounding moment on Saturday seen across the country by millions. A child walking across the monorail tracks several feet in the air as a crowd below watches him in disbelief.
That's absolutely horrible.
A courageous man swooping the boy to safety. Hershey Park says the boy entered a secured area for the ride, which was not in service. The entrance was closed and chained up along with a barricade. Officials say he was at the closed station for 20 minutes before finding a way onto the tracks.
Could have ended very differently.
Why didn't the park have security or something?
Some say they want more action from the park after what happened.
A showdown is brewing between the Florida Department of Transportation and the city of Delray Beach. At the center of controversy, this rainbow crosswalk at Northeast 2nd Avenue and Northeast 1st Street. City leaders say the intersection was painted as a memorial to the Pulse nightclub shooting. But now FDOT says roadway murals violate traffic control regulations and could distract drivers.
I have never found it to be a distraction. I personally have friends and family that love that mural. I think it would be great if it could stay.
I mean, I don't think the colors are distracting. It doesn't really bother me that it's there, except for it is kind of slippery.
Coming up, the information President Trump wants released to the public as questions continue about the safety and efficacy of COVID treatments. We'll be right back. The Trump administration is demanding answers on the power and efficacy of the COVID-19 vaccines following a major shakeup at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. President Trump is asking drug companies to release data to the public as his health secretary continues a major overhaul of policy and personnel. Here's the National News Desk, Christine Frizzell.
President Donald Trump relitigating the record and response to one of the deadliest pandemics in history, seeming to praise his own effort to help create vaccines at a rapid rate known as Operation Warp Speed, but also questioning the outcome. in a post calling on drug companies to justify the success of their COVID drugs, the debate over which he says is causing the CDC to be ripped apart, adding he wants the answer and he wants it now, as his secretary vows more changes.
The CDC is an agency that is very troubled for a very long time, and anybody who lived through the COVID pandemic and saw all of these bizarre recommendations that were not science-based, all the misinformation, understands that.
Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. defending the firing of CDC Director Susan Menares, prompting the resignation of several others, and this opinion piece in the New York Times with 9 former CDC directors warning Kennedy's changes are endangering public health.
I'm hoping that if we draw enough attention to this, those people who've been elected to support, defend, and protect people around this country, our elected representatives, will say no. This is unacceptable. We're not going to take this.
We expect this issue to remain front and center here on Capitol Hill, with Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. scheduled to testify before the Senate Finance Committee this Thursday. I'm Christine Frizzau reporting.
Still had a stunning view of the Northern Lights captured by an astronaut. We're going to show you more pictures of this beautiful site right after this. An astronaut capturing a rare light show from space, and look at it, just stunning. Usually the Northern Lights have more of a greenish hue, but one astronaut captured an amazing crimson-lined aurora orbiting Earth. Red auroras like this one only happened 2 or 3 times during a 6-month mission to the International Space Station. Back here on Earth, the Northern Lights were seen all across several states and parts of Canada. Maybe you saw it for yourself. All right, the Powerball jackpot continues to soar. Tomorrow's drawing is worth an estimated $1.3 billion. The lucky player can take home a cash value of $589 million. But the lottery says this jackpot is the 5th largest in history, the 9th largest among lotteries in the U.S. To win the grand prize, remember, all 6 numbers must match, including the red Powerball. And that does it for this edition of the National News Desk. Please join us again tonight. I'm Taylor Murray. Thanks for watching.